Hey there, and welcome to Outbound, a podcast all about Star Citizen, brought to you by veteran gamers from Solaris Interplanetary. We cut our teeth in the chaos of Planetside 2, running ops, leading squads, and living for those all-out battles, and now we're taking a new approach in Star Citizen. We're going to bring that same energy, also explore the more peaceful aspects of Star Citizen. We're going to be doing it all. We're going to cover it all. We're not experts yet, but we're going to be here to learn, explore, and share our adventures with you, the audience, and figure out what we can do better, how we can learn and improve everything. I'm Perseus. I'm a big fan of tactics, team play, and figuring out how things really work. And I'm joined by Sage Zero.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sage Zero. Welcome to the show. Our goal for this podcast here is to, approach Star Citizen and its development in a realistic kind of way, grounded in, from the perspective of, as Percy said, veteran gamers. We both come from, MMO backgrounds, be it PlanetSide. I come from Guild Wars and EVE Online, and have a perspective of, salty veterans in that gaming space. And our approach here is we're going to be covering major topics and stuff in the game, whether it's development, whether it's drama, whether it's org stuff going on in game events, that kind of stuff. We'll be covering it here and discussing it. So hope you guys are looking forward to it as much as we are, and having some good conversations. And we'll roll right into our first topic for the day. All right, so here we are rolling into our first topic. Making the right choices and starting out, planning your career, and making responsible financial decisions. And I'm sure if you know anything about the game or have heard anything about it, I'm sure there's lots of talk about how much people spend on this game for ships. And, somebody made a meme a couple months back about like the, $50,000 like ship package and that kind of stuff. A lot of that's silly. But the truth of the matter is that you don't really need all of that stuff. You really don't. Buy a starter package, play the game, enjoy the game, and you can earn most of that stuff in game anyway, especially now with this last update. And you can literally build yourself a Polaris. That being said, rolling into this subject here, we'll talk a little bit about the new player experience and try not to fall into some of the pitfalls of getting started here. New player experience is fairly bare right now. There's like couple of professions and careers you can kind of branch off into. It has some specialized equipment you need, whether it's mining or salvaging, or if you just want to go out there and get into some FPS stuff, having a nice little drop ship to get to where you're going is nice, or a starter ship that's pretty flexible that you can do aircraft and enjoy that part of the game. So that being said, most of those roles are kind of fit in most of the starter ships in one way or form. You can look through there, and on average, your starter ship kit's going to cost you from anywhere from $50 to $70, just about the price of a normal game, and that just gets your foot in the door. That's all you really need to worry about for the most part.
And now they're coming out with advanced starters that cover a lot of these professions that they've come out with. Like the Golem came out last week, and in the future, it seems like there's going to be a advanced starter salvager.
Yep.
For in-game careers, which I think are going to be I think honestly should be the packages people buy, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. I think that's where a lot of the content for the game early on, especially in the new player experience, is kind of starting off on the right foot, I think. In that we're gonna look at some of the professions that are in the game and ones that aren't. I mentioned salvaging and mining. There's also a lot of the criminal stuff you can do on that. There's basically
if you go to my screen, I've got up all the careers.
Yep.
We've got bounty hunting, cargo transport, medical. Gameplay is supposed to be a bigger part. Passenger transport. We're gonna have all kinds of mercenary rep givers. Piracy is an entire career if you just want to rob other people. Racing, refueling. And then there's ships for all of these. Repair, reporting. Although I think there's only one reporting. Heavy science, but some of these are going to be years and years away. So making your decisions now, I mean, it's not permanent or final or anything, but if you at least know what you might be interested in the game, that's going to help you figure out what you're going to be looking to buy.
Right.
And there's multiple ships in pretty much all of these categories. Some of them are out, some of them not out. So
My suggestion early on is that I find personally that multi-role ships are kind of where it's at. You find one ship that can kind of cover a couple of different areas, and then you get a little good mix of gameplay. The problem that I find that some people will get into is they will pigeonhole themselves into one part of the game, and then find out they don't enjoy it, and they're kind of stuck with that ship. And
right. But ultimately, though, no one's forever stuck. If you bought a package, you can exchange it for cash or in-game credit. Actually, I should definitely say in-game credit. You can't exchange it unless you return it within the 30-day period. You got to be very careful when you're outside that 30-day period if you want. But and yeah,
yeah, Perseus and I have kind of a diametrically opposed experiences with ship buying. I'm a minimalist. I've spent maybe $300 in the game. I came in here with a very specific goal. I was an early backer. I had my $150 ship that I bought. I've kept that. I like the ship. It's a very neat ship. I'm going to basically sit on it. And then I bought myself a big multi-role ship, a larger ship, something that does cargo, that's a good multi-crew ship. And then with that I bought the Constellation. I love that ship. It's a great ship. It definitely needs like the gold pass, but I mean, you can't beat a better multi-role ship other than that, and maybe a Cutlass. But I wouldn't, beyond that, I personally don't see much more reason to invest too much more money into the game until there's more of it out there. But within
I
that,
agree
I
completely.
can basically earn anything in game and do any kind of mission and still enjoy majority of the game. A lot of folks want to throw money at capitals and stuff because they want to be in there early, and which is cool to have it day one. But as somebody who comes from a background of playing games like EVE Online and stuff, having the capital ship sometimes can be more of a burden than it's worth having. And yeah.
Absolutely. I think if you have the conception that you need to spend a lot of money in this game, you're dead wrong. And in fact, I would say that Star Citizen is going to have a need for people that just have the basic starter and are just going to. If you look at some of these capital ships that a lot of orgs have, even if it's just you're going to be playing with one friend, they might have a bigger ship. They're going to need people on that ship, and we have a large ship, capital plus problem where after 10 years people have acquired large fleets, even if it was just a couple hundred a year, now it's been in development for some time, so people have huge fleets that need, there's a crew problem, not a ship problem or even a money problem. Even if you look at our small org right now, the min crew for all the ships that even how many people do we got in here? What is it, 10? Yeah, we've got 130, 180 min crew in all the ships that we've acquired. So if you're coming into this game, you can just buy the cheapest pack and immediately join another org. I mean, it doesn't have to be ours or whatever, but join an org and you have access potentially to all kinds of ships that they have already.
Most of it can be bought in game with credits too, though. Like you can earn your way to just about any ship in this game now. They've done a pretty good job at structuring it that way, and once like the economy and stuff is online and it's building it, it may be a little bit different. But as it is right now, you can do a couple hours of bounty hunting and pretty much afford just about anything you want right now. That being said, goes into our other topic of realism here, is just remembering that this is considered an open beta. Or I guess technically it's an alpha. Technically an alpha, yeah. Perpetual alpha at this point, but most of the stuff is going to get wiped at some point. The credits you have in game right now are funny money. If you go ask around and chat in game, somebody will literally just send you 10 million and to say, hey, go buy something and have fun. Because the community is actually pretty nice about that kind of stuff, and very helpful as far as you do have your toxic PvPers out there, but there's a lot of really nice people in this game. So yeah, don't let that put you off, and definitely try the game out and experience what it's going to bring. Just make sure you keep grounded in you know your understanding that it is still a game that is in development, and most of what you're doing right now is just kind of exploring the environment and learning how the game mechanics itself work, and getting used to maneuvering your way around what is going to be a very expansive universe by the time that they're done with it. Getting it early now kind of makes it so that when you jump in for the first time when the game finally launches on live, that you're not going to be have that period where you have to adjust to such a large game world, right? You're already comfortable in it, and that's kind of invaluable as far as what I'm concerned. That's what I started. That's why I got 1 or 2 ships, and I just kind of stuck with it and just kept playing the game. It's because I wanted to get out there and kind of explore myself out, explore the universe, and kind of find where I fit in the parts of the game that I enjoy. So that's kind of what my recommendation is for new players, is just kind of go at it with that mentality. Yeah.
But then again, so I mean, if you're, if we're looking at controlling our spending, and we say controlling because, let's be frank, RSI, CIG, or whatever, they have a lot of predatory marketing. They will suck people in on sales. You're going to save money, buy now, lifetime insurance. You're going to have consequences later if you don't get this now, kind of deal. We don't know. This is like Sage was saying. This is an alpha game. Even though they market it as a play now on YouTube right now, ready to go. And in some ways, you can easily play for hours. I mean, it is sometimes it's a playable experience. Some other times it's not. But it's been in development for 10 years, so we don't just have new players. We got returning players like me. I backed in 2013, and I bought it 315, and I put the game aside for 10 years. And only recently, in the last couple of years, I picked up a couple ships on, based on people telling me, the game's making big strides now, so I picked up some big ships. And I don't regret them to some extent. I regret giving them too much money, I think. But I don't regret the ships necessarily. I picked up a Perseus and an Odyssey. I actually returned the Perseus, and I picked up a Pioneer recently. But, we've got a lot of different game people coming in from different states. So I think if we're controlling our money, and I'm saying it from that perspective because, they market at it, they're aggressive marketers, and they will do psychological tricks to get people's money. And I'm not really sure. I think we need to be pushing back on that, and pretty much, from if we're a realism podcast, we got to be holding these guys accountable to the development. So if you're coming into this game, I'd set a price range right off the start.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
and
definitely.
Yeah, just right off the start, And one of the things that we wanted that are going to guide us on, what do I want to be able to accomplish in this game in the future? And one of those is going to be, well, when am I actually playing this game? Am I going to play it right now? I need something flight ready right now? Or am I going to just buy something real quick, put it down like I did for 10 years, and come back in 2 years or something? I think, I personally think if you're just coming into this game, you should just pick up a starter package, hold it there, and hop it into an org and get access to everything that they've got, because you haven't spent money in, and they're going to welcome you right in because they need people. This game is going to have a crew problem, not a ship problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the things that this game kind of suffers from is that, in a way, they did too good of a job in their design, because they wanted to build a, almost a one-to-one scale universe in some ways, like as far as like what was the crew requirement and stuff for ships and that kind of thing. And they're probably going to be one of the first games to actually pull it off at this kind of level, where you literally have hundreds of players all manning ships and stuff like this in real time. Eve didn't really have that. I mean, each ship was controlled by a capsuleer. You had no crew, no management, no nothing like that. This is literally going to be, you and your 6 buddies manning up the gut turrets, and you've got that one guy who doesn't feel comfortable shooting, so he's running around doing engineer stuff on the ship, while you've got the other guy that's co-piloting and directing the shields around. We're talking full Star Trek, manning a ship with the crew. A game that's going to be that large in scale, that's going to require that much manpower to even muster up the people to do a large scale fight like that is gonna be massive, and it's you know you will be able to kind of find a role to fit in there somewhere, right? Even if you don't have all of the cool shiny equipment and stuff, because
Yeah. And in the game this big, there is room for everyone, or at least the
yes,
planned
exactly.
things. And I mean, I say that now because I think in this year, I don't anticipate other big features other than maybe building.
Possibly
I'm not
engineering
yeah,
starting to come online. I think tier one
maybe,
engineering
and
is supposed to come up.
that was they put it on a card for, and it's the card says point one, release 1.0. But that doesn't mean it's not going to come out before that. Um, but in terms of the gameplay that's in right now is mining, salvaging, bounty work, and combat, and cargo hauling. So those are what we got. All these other careers that we were looking at before. Passenger transport, racing, repair, smuggling, data transport, exploration, medical. All of these are not in the game.
At least not in a full gameplay loop. There's a little bit of medical
Right.
in there. There's a little bit of racing in there, but most of that stuff is kind of limited. It's mostly just messing around, trying it out. You have like words like there's a lot of medical works and stuff like that that take their rescue beacons pretty seriously.
Yeah, and they're going to put it. It sounds like they're getting ready to put them back in.
Yeah,
Maybe,
they're trying to fix it.
in
They
this
broke
next
them last
update.
patch, and they're trying to put them back in. Yeah.
Yeah, so this, we've got a problem here in this game where they have stuff in here, like smuggling was in here. You got scanned by NPC, and that was out. And so they, I think I get that they're doing development phases and stuff, but so that's a couple things on controlling your spending is know what you're going to actually do in the game and who you're going to play it with. If you don't know, don't buy big shit. If you you do not want to be buying a big ship that has a high crew requirement. If you're looking at these ships and what's going to work for me, be paying attention to those crew requirements. AI is supposed to be implemented in this game, but we know that there's been issues with getting it inside. I don't think that's happening for a couple years now, or it's gonna. I don't think we're seeing it for 2 years.
Yeah.
Or until release even. So
I think in summary, the idea here is just keep your expectations grounded. Enjoy the game, explore what it is, and keep your fingers crossed for what it will be. But ultimately, they've got to deliver. So far in the last year or so, they've showed me that I think that they're going to be able to do it. It just may take a little longer than they expect. There's a lot of stuff coming online, and they are creating a lot of new types of infrastructure for games as they're developing this. So it is experimental in the most literal of senses. That being said, I think
you got some doomsayers that are like, this game's never coming out, and there's clearly massive developments in this game. It's clearly being developed. No one's running off with hundreds of millions of cash necessarily. And completely, cashing out. We are doing active development, but I would say, based on how this game is developed, we should be as players, as people interested, or you're bringing people into the game, we should not just be throwing money at anyone.
Yeah, agreed.
You got to be realistic, and that and you can back how you want, but I wouldn't be falling for some of these sales and prices and stuff like that. We've got one in here, Captains of Industry, and if you're not familiar with the game, they'll give you a war run price. Spend more today, save later. Where it's let's see, one of these got a war bond, right?
Yeah, so for anybody that's new to this,
yeah.
when they say war bond means new money in. You can't exchange for those packages with store credit. It's got to be new money.
Yeah.
And that's kind
And
of
they're gonna say,
a marketing way that they use to try to capture new currency in the game. So some of that stuff can be worth it. Like, I think somebody in our org a while back bought the industrial pack. They gave them like 6 ships, and they have traded those ships up for a few other things, and have overall spent less money than they would have if they bought them individually. So, like in that case, it can be good, but in general, just without using too crude of a phrase, keep it in your pants.
yeah. And here's some of the other tactics. We're going to see stock limited. So they're only going to sell a certain number of these. Look, and, so this one that was available with store credit, it was more expensive and but it's sold out. So they've sold all of the individual individual hulls. But if you still spend, fresh money, war bond, into the system, it's less. But even that's going to be limited. And I think, in this wave, it's still available, but, it hasn't been bought out completely. So these are some of the things. And I mean, I get it fair. Somebody coming into the game and they see this $925 ship, they're like, what in the fuck's going on in this game? And rightfully so. It's like, this is supposed to be an org ship. I picked one up because I had store credit, because I probably fell for a little bit too much marketing over the last 10 years.
Hey, at least you can admit it, right?
Yeah, and here's the thing: is
the first step.
Yeah, and the thing is, in this stage of development, we've been out, active development for 13-ish years. Now's the time when people don't need to be spending money to get everyone else. You've got orgs that got all this stuff already. If you want to go mining, find an org that's got a mole. Here's a flight ready one, ready to go right now, and it's got 5 crew members, I think, or three miners at least, and 1 driver.
Or currently in game, you can go spend probably about 4 to 5 hours worth of gameplay and make the 15 mil you need to, or a little more than 4 to 5 hours, probably closer to 10 hours worth of gameplay, and you could buy them all in game, which is a couple million credits. So I mean, if you want to try out the gameplay loops, just get a basic ship and go earn the damn thing. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So the organization that you join, let me see if I forget where you can find an org. Maybe on your screen you find the org page, but find your org that has all this stuff, because there's no need for you to buy it, because somebody else already has. If you are going to buy, I think people should be, you buy something that's got a, it's going to be my own thing, but buy something that's got a bed and a restroom in it, because this game is so anal already that if you don't drink water, your character will die. Eventually, all of these bathrooms that they put in all kinds of starships, you're going to freaking die if you don't use one. So get one that has one.
Yeah, we'll see how serious they go with that one. I feel like at some point, yeah, it'll probably happen. I don't know. I feel like at some point, the survival aspect of it gets a little tedious sometimes.
It is tedious, but they are doubling down, and that's another reason why people shouldn't be spending so much money into this. Is if you find out later, I don't like the fact that when my character dies, there's whispers of permadeath. They haven't defined that in the game. So if you spend, $3,000 on a fleet, and you eventually find out, wow, I don't like this gameplay, you're screwed. You can try to sell your ships on the gray market and get, maybe half of that if you're a U.S. Buyer. I don't know if you're in the EU, you may have other options, but I'd be careful. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this is our org, but
if you go on here, there's tons of org.
There's tons of orgs.
You can sort it by most active, and this goes by in-game activity, so orgs that actually log on and participate in the game.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of folks out there, people that do pirate work, people that do bounty hunting, people that just do industrial stuff. You can kind of find any branch you want to. Games like this is, if I've learned anything from playing PlanetSide and Guild Wars 2 and EVE Online, having a great community that you can lean on is going to make your gaming experience so much better. It really is. You find friends for life, like me and Perseus, and a lot of our crew, and Solaris, a lot of us
And,
old gamers who
I
play
think
games for a
they're
long
coming
time.
out with
And,
features in game where you can find
Yeah.
orgs in game. They presented that at CitizenCon, but who knows when that's actually hitting the game. They've identified that social features as something that's going to be implemented this year. Um, so, but in terms of actually, controlling your spending, find an org and just mooch off of them. They want you. They want you anyway. I know we do. To man our ships. I'm sure there's bigger orgs that have much deeper pockets. I think most of us, and at least our org, have more recently come to the game and picked up a modest amount of ships here and there. And we've got a couple original backers, like myself, and that had backed originally and got things at a much cheaper price, and they've gone up a lot. And that kind of brings up another thing I mentioned earlier. If you're just picking up something now, and you're gonna say, in a couple years I'll be ready to play. Nothing wrong with getting something in concept. Get something in concept now. Could be 1 or 2 years down. But they're announcing new ships even that they never even mentioned before. Nothing wrong with getting it in concept now that could go up in value, and you locked in a good price on something that you were interested in, at least, that fits within your envisioned goals within the game, or what you whether that. I think what they're announcing soon is going to be an advanced starter salvage. Is kind of what the rumor is. Keep an eye out.
Speaking of that,
yeah.
let's roll into our org discussion here.
Oh, okay.
All right, now we're rolling into our org talk. In this section, we're going to be talking a little bit just about orgs in general, org life, what we do in our org, and kind of where our focus has been recently. We were discussing about like the social integration and stuff they're going to be putting a lot into the game. A lot of that's coming with the new mobiGlass rework, and they're trying to wire some of the social systems into the game. They discussed a little bit of it at CitizenCon, showing off some of the features with the new mobiGlass and some of the concepts they had for like the in-game org management and some of the things they're going to be adding with that, which would be nice. Currently, our org is kind of hitting a bit of I guess a wall, like a feature wall, because there's a lot of basic like guild management / org management, whatever you want to call it in this game, features that aren't quite there yet. Something so simple as being able to pull up
member list, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of features that aren't there yet, and they got to get rolling on this stuff. So the devs have definitely gone through and said that there's a lot of that stuff coming, and they displayed some concepts that they've been working on as far as like organizing that, especially with these larger events. One of the biggest ones was when they did the Slicer Idris event. They had a party that had like freaking 50 plus people in it, and trying to manage all that stuff was an absolute nightmare. It's a miracle that anybody got there in the first place. So, it's stuff to look forward to. The game desperately needs it. When you're going to have a game that's at this scale, that's built around just having this many people, being together and collaborating and that kind of stuff, that you've got to have the features to support it. So, hopefully we will see that pretty soon this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's been identified as something that they need. And I mean, here's the thing: is all of these features for playability, if they want to call it that, what I think it really is a kick once they release Squadron 42, which is the single player kind of version of campaign, I guess, if you will, of Star Citizen. They have to have all this ready. It's that's the entire point of releasing that game, is to essentially funnel people into Star Citizen, which they built 2 games at the same time,
Yeah.
So these features have to be ready. So I mean that gives me a little bit of hope for next year. And they've said Squadron 42 is coming out next year, 2026. So these social things have to be in there by then. If not this year, they better be in next year. Otherwise, I don't see how that works with their funding. They need a big boost, I think, in their funding. Or I mean, I don't know if they need it, but if they'd be foolish to leave potentially hundreds of millions of dollars on the table from getting people in from Squadron 42.
Yeah, honestly, if we've learned anything as gamers over the last, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, is that if you screw up your launch, you are, I don't know, you are really
Yeah.
screwed. And there's been so many games that have come out, like MMOs, that had a lot of potential, that absolutely
Fallout. Yeah.
flowered, like just completely fell over right out the gate, and they did not have all the basic features and stuff ready. Fallout comes to mind, New World, you know,
Talk a little bit. I don't
yeah,
know. It was less about features and more about just gameplay.
yeah, it's been a real rocky couple of years for MMOs trying to launch, and hopefully with as much time and feedback from the community and the you know uh, the Cloud Imperium is actually listening. So we'll see. It really depends on how they handle it and what they prioritize. But if you don't have a great social system off launch, when you launch your game and you get all of the buzz and stuff around Squadron 42 coming, and that being your intro for people into this universe you're trying to build, if you don't have that start out the gate correct, it's all stumbling from there. And there's a few games that have pulled it back that have done a great job. No Man's Sky, honestly, hats off to those guys for completely 180ing their game. They did not have the features that they had promised at launch, but they worked their asses off and turned that into a truly brilliant game. And so it can be done, and I have hope that they can make it work with this game.
Yeah. I mean, that says though. I mean, if you're getting into this game, the development has already been 13 years, and huge
Yeah.
promises have been made on the
That is true.
content, and we are still looking at 2 to 3 at least. I would say. I think after Squadron ships out, we've still got probably 2 years till we get stable, and then we have post-release content that is still going to have to be made, and including ships like the Endeavor, which they've openly said are not anywhere near. They're not going to
Yeah,
start
right.
it until after release of 1.0. And we don't know, but to me that just tells me science feature is not going to be in the game at 1.0. So, which is a big bummer because I'm very interested in that. So,
I think the science feature will be in with scanning, and they've got scanning 2.0 in the books. I mean, once FPS scanning is in, which all that kind of links together, they're trying to make sure that like the scanning modes between when you're in your ship and when you're in FPS is kind of uniform. It all makes sense. Even down to where like the EM and heat signatures works in FPS because you can hear sound, or you can pick up the EM of their equipment as a way to ping them with the FPS ping. And I feel like once that feature's kind of in, then you'll have your little scan tool, attachment for your multi-tool device, and you can go out and do science and scan plants and stuff. I'm sure that stuff will be there. But I just feel like a lot of that is kind of hinged on that layer of the game that they haven't completed yet. Which sounds like it's fairly feature complete in the Squadron 42 version of the game. You hear them talk about it, you've kind of seen the sampling that they've got. It sounds like in those box scenarios they have all the parameters set up for that. The problem is like in a big open sandbox universe, right? How do you go through and build all of those areas, right? It's one thing when you're talking about a combined kind of linear space that you're building a game that's kind of story driven, but out in a big open sandbox world, you've got to have somebody who has to go through and rig all of these systems into a way that they kind of can expand exponentially and give people stuff to do, and what do you do when you do the thing, right? You go out there and you scan the plant. You have this information collected on the plant. Well, what do you do with the information? Okay, well you go sell it to the science guys who are going to add it as part of their geological study or whatever, and then they're going to give you money for it. Like they've got to build those kind of systems into the game. I think they're coming, but that just goes into the scope creep of how many professions they kind of set themselves up from the start. And kind of putting the cart before the horse situation. Now they're stuck trying to go back and like, okay, well, how do we get this game system in when all the technology that it was relying on isn't quite there yet? So that's kind of how we ended up with the current version of like the bounty hunting system and salvaging. Salvage has gone through 2 or 3 different iterations at this point, right? So that's kind of my feeling about it. It's coming. I see the potential there. It's just when.
Yeah. So we've got they covered some of this stuff about orgs at CitizenCon. That was like seven months ago now. So the stuff is here. They just got to put it in here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that calendar. That in-game calendar right there is the shit. That is what I've wished every guild I've ever run had an in-game calendar built into the game. Please, for the love of God.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think this year of all the years is a good year to get into. But I mean, you say I guess it's just as closer to development to potential release is better. But yeah, orgs, they're a resource that players should be using. Then they got to be using them. Basically. Yeah. I mean, it's an MMO. I get that people want to be able to do this stuff solo, and there's going to be solo potential, but just don't see why. Why would you be alone if you don't have to? You're just going to get ganged up on by baddies. And then there's whole YouTube channels dedicated to being baddies and pirating people. And just, solo, I just saw one about, pirating a bunch of salvagers and, it's like, well, what's the point of that? Just hop into an org and strengthen numbers. You don't even have to talk to them until you need help. I don't know.
Yeah, pretty much.
These features are going to come out, and I think we're going to see an explosion in social gameplay, which this game desperately needs in terms of its development.
Yeah.
The sooner the better.
I think also kind of the giving orgs a little more something to do, I think, will come along with a lot of the base building and stuff, which is coming at some point or another. They showed off some good examples of that with the almighty, org space fortress that they showed off. Which, for those of you who've played EVE Online, territory control and having facilities and stuff like that, it really gives orgs, like larger ones, kind of something to focus on. Whether you're trying to protect the territory as a rapid response force or military aircraft and scouting looking for bad guys, or you're part of the logistics teams that either are constructing it or making sure that it is maintained. Like, all of that takes people to do stuff, in a functioning, like, MMO type game, and that's going to build a lot into what the orgs are about, is being a part of that. But it's one of those things that's not in the game until it's in the game, so keep your expectations real, and
And here's the thing, though, is if you bought anything other than a single person ship, you need these resources. You need to have some sort of party or org system where you're going to connect on just getting crew members, because we know AI is too far down the line, and with engineering, even if you have AI blades manning your guns, you still need crew members, potentially on even medium size ships like a Zeus, which is solo capable, but the crew size is 1 to 3. If you want to use those other, the other 75% of your ship, you need crew members and you need a party to connect with those on, and you need a rep system so you don't invite some pirate right onto your ship and then get shot at the end.
Anybody from EVE knows that one. That security status will save your ass because it gives you a good idea as to who you're dealing with, and that's something that in Star Citizen's current state is kind of desperately needed, because every encounter out in a contested zone, which brings me around to a little bit of what our org's been doing lately, is diving in contested zones and messing around that part of the game, which is an extremely cool part of the game. Like, don't be put off by the fact that you may run into other players and fights may ensue. There's a little bit of less risk to that right now with the Tier 0 item recovery, but it is an incredibly fun, well thought out part of the game. That and the new half-hour platforms, despite some of the instability and glitchiness around with it. The scope of what they've done is actually pretty damn impressive, and it works pretty well. Like even the puzzles and stuff, it's a lot of fun, and we've been really enjoying it in our org for the last couple of weeks with everybody in Hathor. The contested zones have been pretty much opened up, and we've gotten a couple of cash outs on executive hangers here in the last couple of weeks.
We've done pretty well here.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It really has been.
And the thing is when with our org at least, is you've got enough members that I don't think we've had a big failure yet, other than game bugs. Actually,
Yeah.
I think we've been able to defend our interests at Hathor. Got away with all the loot, even when we got kind of swarmed down. We got away. With the fighters did their job, and the loot guys got out with the loot. But yeah, there's a lot of cool things that are hopefully going to open up as they bring in these more features and more careers.
Yeah. I mean, they've put two kind of combat-focused org activities. I think in the future here, our next one's probably going to be something that's a little more grounded, either in PvE or possibly more in the industrial side of things. And I think they need to. Yeah, I think there's got to be some good balance there. So I know they've been working on mining missions and stuff for a while, and with some of the basic manufacturing stuff, and them adding in Wicklow, who collects a lot of those materials and stuff, and gives out like special items based off of what you're bringing him. I could see him kind of being the conveyor for some of the more mining and industrial, oriented players, because who better to barter and trade with than an alien, traveling merchant who wants anything and everything he can sell, right? And it kind of opens up an avenue for some of that kind of stuff, which is where I think they're trying to go with some of the quest givers and stuff. So hopefully we'll see some org kind of focused quests for Wicklow, or some other events and stuff like with the world building that they do that'll kind of give some other avenues that aren't so PvP focused, because they've got to keep it balanced. There's definitely a very rabid portion of this player base that likes their PvP, but games like this don't run without your care bears. Like they just don't. They don't function.
Yeah, I think the problem with this game in this development phase right now is it's literally all PvP.
Yeah.
There is very little in terms of repercussions for engaging in it, even in protected space, and it's just not in. They haven't put these features in. So if you're a player that doesn't want to be engaging in nonstop PvP and ganking, getting ganked, or whatever part of it, you need you need backup. You need orgs. You have somebody looking after your back, and not just. If it's not even just for the PvP, it's for just stupid bugs that you kill and just ruin your day. If for whatever reason you get encapped for something dumb, or fall through a planet and your ship's just left on the ground there, and maybe you just stupid stuff. So orgs are helpful for that, but
I look forward to seeing where this kind of all leads into, especially with the all the org UI and stuff supposed to be coming around pretty soon here. That and they've already talked a little bit about reputation within orgs. So that was a big part of EVE Online, was that anytime any one of your members did work for a particular faction in the game, your org also gained standing with those factions, so therefore all of your members could go do missions or buy things from those factions at a discount because your org had standing with them. So
and that's what we just saw in the YouTube video, and we've had in the background is that this org alignment, which I think is going to be absolutely critical in terms of the long-term gameplay, more than I think people realize this, because they've said that your character will die, and I don't think you're going to lose your pledged ships, and you can allow your other things to inherit things potentially if they maintain some of what they've said. But maybe you lose money, and maybe you lose personal reputation. But if you've invested reputation into an org, you may be able to pick off, better off from where you left off from. If you've, boosted your org to, I don't know, aligned it with a particular guild, I don't know, headhunters will just say or something. Um, you may, if you have a total character death and maybe your rep is decreased, maybe you can just get started from where your org got left off, in terms of where you aligned it, which I think it would be real good because from what I've heard, I don't want to lose reputation, if that's a death penalty, which really sucks. So
Yeah, I really do hope they keep it grounded with the whole death and consequences thing. It needs to
yeah,
happen without a doubt because you can't have a functioning law system unless there are consequences for dying.
yeah. And
Um,
the problem is they want to say, they want to be realistic, but the thing is, there's no realistic consequences right now for doing crime. I
right.
mean, it's just you just log off in prison and log onto an alt account, and that's basically it. If you want to do anything, so meanwhile, you could have done a bunch of murder sprees and pirated a bunch of fellows, or I don't know, did crime, but your rep is just going to reset after who knows a couple hours. So
This is definitely a very
uh,
big subject, and I feel like we'll be touching on this one more in the future for sure.
yeah,
All right, and this wraps up our episode. Yeah, I mean, next week or next episode, I should say, we will be touching on things like ships. We'll be digging a little bit into org activities and some other things you can do with org, things like salvage ops and mining, and a little bit of the minutia around that, and kind of how those gameplay loops have evolved and where they're at now, and just looking at things like ship loadouts and you know, I don't know, preferences, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Anything you want to add, Precious?
no, I mean we covered a lot of topics, but we're going to be covering a lot more. I guess we only cover. Feels like we've got so much more to share on what our thoughts are and what the fun we're going to get up to. So we'll see how we do with starter ships and what we
Gotta
end up doing together and having the fun, as an org we're doing.
gotta start somewhere.
But we got a referral code somewhere. Use it if you're getting into the game. Um, there's another topic there though, is they're wiping referrals. So use it while it lasts. I don't know if they're. Who knows? Even if you even get the free AUEC later, anyway. Maybe they just directly stop it. But we'll see you outbound.
The Outbound. Thanks for watching, guys.
Thanks for watching Outbound.
If you are for any reason interested in joining an org, uh, we have our org links here at the end of the video. Everybody have a good one.